Okay. So today I was planning on picking up where we left off on the periodic performance report. And we'll take a look at, let me get over here to the right tab, the ISTEP tab and the Worksite Placement. And so if you weren't able to join us last time, what we did is we went through each of these areas, and then we talked about what the criteria was, and also where you would need to update information in the system in order to have it impact as part of the report. Okay. So one thing with our webinar also, if you to help eliminate any background noise, if you could mute your phones when you're not speaking, and then, if something happens you're not able to and there's some extra background noise, then I'll go ahead and I'll mute your line for you. But if we can do that, that is very helpful. So, I didn't know, Erin, did you have anything you wanted to talk about before we jump into Illinois WorkNet?
No, we'll go ahead and jump into the WorkNet. As you're talking about the performance report, I will follow up a little bit after you get through some of what the WorkNet has as our performance report, but I'll let you go ahead and get started with that.
Okay, great. Okay. So last time
hey, Natasha.
we looked. Yes.
Natasha, can you make your screen a little bit bigger, please?
Maybe. There we go. Okay. So I just want to start out real quick so everybody knows where we are with a lot of this information. Don't want to assume that everybody knows how to find this. So we have the Community Youth Employment Program tools. You can always access our partner resources from the footer of Illinois WorkNet. We do have a full list of resources and trainings and update information. The item that we're going to talk about specifically today is the CYEP Periodic Performance Report, and we have some instructions that are available. As long as I don't cover, or if I'm able to cut out any actual customer information, then we'll go ahead and post it in the archived webinars. If we have to go into deeper customer information, then I won't post it here, but you can request a link to access that archived webinar. Okay. So to start out, we have the ISTEP. And Erin and I went through, let me find the instructions here real quick. We went through all these different areas when we were putting together this report and defined the information. And one of the areas that, after looking at this and talking over it more with my programmer, Cody, he misunderstood and thought that the all recommended services was just the entire list where we say recommended services. So we need to make an update to this section. But that also brought to my attention that, well, maybe we need to be clear on what all recommended services are. So for everyone, and Erin, correct me if I'm misstating this, when we talk about all recommended services, it means that a person could have, you're working with your customer, and they could have one step or service, or they could have 5. But whatever you select for those services should really address, the barriers that the person has that you're trying to help them with overcoming those barriers to employment.
A couple of minutes.
And then if you had recommended those, then they should complete and mark them as that they had received those steps. So what I'm saying here, just to be clear, I'm going to go. This is my test person, and I'm going to go ahead. I hear some background noise, so let me go ahead and take a moment. Or if you're not muted, go ahead and do so. But I'll
look at my
let me mute a couple of people real quick. And if you need to be unmuted, just go ahead and let me know in the chat. And then Dee or whoever, you can help me, or Aaron, you can help me make sure I unmute them.
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, can I clarify real quick too?
Uh-huh.
Is that the performance standard says 100% of youth requiring supportive services will receive those services. Acceptable performance is 90%. The idea is, though, that we assess all youth for a need for supportive services. And there are lots of different options as to what those services might be. But the idea is, if we say to a youth, well, you need these services in order to be successful, but then the youth doesn't get those services, well, that's a problem. So our goal, after we determine what the services are that the youth needs, then our goal should be to make sure that the youth gets started receiving those services. And so as we identify those things in the ISTEP, which that's what that is, right, the Individual Services Training and Education Plan, as we identify what those services are that the youth need, then it's our job to follow up and make sure that they've got access to get those. Okay, so that's what that measure and that standard are based off of.
Right. So here's an example. We have a goal that they need support services. And so if you said that they needed these two services, then in order to fall into this category of customers who received all recommended services, that would mean that they would need to have these two services put in there and then marked as complete. Okay? Now, as I was talking this over with my programmer, I noticed that we have enrolled youth with an individualized case plan. Okay, and also Cody's going to add these lines here so it's easier to distinguish between these areas. But it says enrolled youth with an individualized case plan. And what does that mean? So if we look back at our instructions here, it says, let me zoom in before Dee asks me to do so. And then it says that customers who, I think I just went over here. Customers who have an individualized case plan means they have to have at least one short-term goal. Okay? So let me go back over to my area. So I think what we'll do is we'll flip these so the goal comes first and then you can see the recommended services. So in order to add a goal for one of your customers, what you would do is you would go to the ISTEP tab. Again, you're going to go ahead and complete the, review their different assessments, talk about the different barriers that they may have, what their goals are, what they would like to do, that type of thing. And then you would put together your assessment of, where are they with readiness, where are they with employment, where are they within needs for support services. So you can have a summary after you have reviewed those assessments. And then, and also one thing I forgot to mention, if you have, an additional assessment that you use at your organization, you can add those results in here too. So that's an option for you. Okay, so we're going to assume that we assess the individual we'll put together a summary, and then based on those assessments and what their needs are, we're going to put together a goal, okay? So we have here, goals should be written so they address barriers, employment goals, education and training, so forth. Should be realistic, measurable, attainable. So what you do is you just click the button to add a goal. We have these set up so you would just have short statements, so it's kind of like a tweet, 144 characters, and to write the goal statement. And then you can have it in support services, career planning, education training, independent living. And then for the requirement who have an individualized case plan, they have to, at a minimum, have at least one short-term goal. Okay? And then you can mark the status as started. On track means that everything's moving along smoothly. Off track means that something happened and they're not going to meet the end date. Maybe you might need to make an adjustment. And then complete means that they have completed it. So that's how you add a short-term goal. Any questions so far? So we have to have customers who have an individualized case plan, and I'm going to have them add some more notes in here that says that this means that they have to have a short-term goal. And then when they have a goal, you can add services.
I've been sneezing a couple of times today.
And then once they have at least, the one service that has been completed, or whatever needs to be added in there. If it's 3 services that need to be added, then add 3. But once all the ones that have been identified have been completed, then they would fall into this category of customers who have received all recommended services. Okay? So here's my question now. Did this last time. If you weren't with us, this is my question. This means that I can move on after I have at least half of you reply yes or no. If it doesn't make sense, then that's fine. You just tell me and I can go over it again. But I need to have at least half of you say yes or no. Does it make sense? I have 3. Get up. There we go. Okay. So at least half of you so far have responded. If you get all 11 of you, that'd be great. Okay. If it doesn't make sense, it's really fine. You just can tell me, and I'll just try to explain it in a different way. Okay. Well, we're going to assume that it all makes sense at this point in time, and we're going to move forward with the next area. Okay. So the next area is customers with an individualized case plan that includes a college and career plan. So what does that mean? I guess I'm going to have Cody put these in the notes on the screen so you don't have to necessarily refer back to the instructions. What that means is they have to have at least one long-term goal in a career plan or training plan category. So if I look at that on my test person here, I can see, well, I have a career plan goal, but that's short term, so that doesn't meet the criteria for that particular item. But I have an education and training plan that has a long-term goal, so that would meet the criteria. So in that case, then I would say customers who have an individualized case and career plan that includes, or case plan that includes college and career plan. So what this is referring to is the goal. That's what the system is going to look for, and I would have met this customer could fall into that category. So the next item is customers that have a individualized case plan. So this is building upon that complete 50% or more of their short-term plan goals. Back over here. So if you have, now Aaron, help me with this one. If you have one goal, you have to complete it. If you have two short-term goals, then you have to, at a minimum, complete one of those short-term goals. If you have 3 short-term goals, then you have to meet, 2 out of 3 in order to be in that.
You got it. That is correct.
Okay.
Because the standard is that 100% of youth will complete case plan goals, and how we kind of determine, again, we've got our standard is always 100%, that we want everybody to do this in every situation. We'd like to see everybody who sets a goal meet that goal. Again, with the short-term goals, those are goals that we expect to meet during the Community Youth Employment Program while we're actually serving these youth. Longer-term goals may or may not be completed within the period here of the Community Youth Employment Program. We set these goals because we want the youth to be thinking in advance, what am I going to do? But as we've discussed on on previous webinars, that CYP is really a shorter-term program, and so the long-term goals are to get people thinking about the long-term goals. When we're talking about the case plan goals, though, the short-term goals that we're trying to complete during the program, we've got that our acceptable performance is that 80% of youth will complete at least 50% of their case plan goals. And this considers only those youth that actually have a case plan developed. So once you've got the goals in there and we consider that they've got the case plan developed, then yes, we expect 4 out of 5 youth will complete at least half of their goals. And if you've got 3, then in order to get that minimum, you've got to complete 2 out of 3 goals.
Okay.
You want to keep that in mind too, by the way, as you're setting goals. I don't want anybody to say, well, I'm only going to set 1 goal because then I only have to help this youth complete 1 goal. We don't want to encourage you to shortchange the youth by not coming up with a comprehensive list of goals, but also it's important to be wise about goals too, that part of the performance measure is that the goals need to be able to be completed. And so they ought to be fairly realistic. If you're going to, and again, we said that the youth, that kind of the standard there is that the youth will complete 50% or more of the case plan goals. So if they complete fewer than half of their goals, then something's wrong. Either we've set too many goals that weren't realistic, or the youth maybe just was absolutely not motivated and we weren't able to assist there. But Dee, did you have a question? Sorry, I'm seeing activity from you. No? Okay. So I just wanted to make sure we're clear on that too, that when we're talking about completing the goals, you want to be reasonable in how you set the goals and try to come up with realistic goals. Again, since it's only half, 50% or more that you've got to complete, it is okay to stretch yourself a little bit and to propose some goals that may or may not be completed. But that's the idea, okay?
Okay. So
Jane's got a question too, Natasha, there. It says, so can you explain to me how some youth may have a case plan and some may not? And just to be clear, if you're talking to me, all youth should have a case plan. That we ask for all youth to have a case plan. If you don't put the information into the WorkNet, then they're not going to have one. So that's up to you to ensure that the youth have got the case plan in there. But it is possible that you're going to have youth that you don't put a case plan on. And of those, I know I mentioned, and maybe this is where this is coming from, I said, so if those youth don't have a case plan, then we're not going to consider them in the following performance measure of completing the case plan goals. So for example, if you've got, we say that the standard acceptable performance is that 80% of youth will have an individualized case plan. So let's say you've got 10 youth that you're serving, and 8 of those youth have an individualized case plan. Well, you've met the standard because you've got 80% that have an individualized case plan. Now, of those, let's say 7 of those 8 youth meet at least 50% of their case plan goals. Then you would actually still meet that performance measure, even though the performance measure, the standard there is 80% of youth will complete 50% or more of their case plan goals, and you've only got 7. Well, it's 7 out of 8 youth, not 7 out of the original 10, because we're not counting you against the youth that didn't have a case plan in the first place. Make sense? Looks like Jay says, got it. So just to be clear on that, okay?
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so now we have out-of-school youth started or completed one of the following services. Okay, so in the instructions, pull them over here, we have it defined in the instructions as what is an out-of-school youth, okay? What the criteria is, what it's looking for. So when I go to my person, where do I find this? I find the criteria, so I know who's considered the out-of-school youth in this area. And then you should see that it would say, no. I'm just going to change it. Oh, sorry. Yes. No, this is out-of-school youth. And if they say, do you have a high school diploma or equivalent? They say no. Would you be willing to go back to school? They say yes. This criteria right here is what we're talking about when we talk about the out-of-school youth. Okay? So let me go to this person's ISTEP. So if I'm have this person at the out-of-school youth, what I would need to do is have to make sure that they had something in here that was either attended secondary education classes or attend adult education and literacy classes. So if that's not the case, if I don't have that in there, then I would go up because I'm going to build my plan. I'm going to continue to add on to it. There's a couple ways you can do it, but this is one way. You could go into the recommended services section. You could select attend adult education and literacy classes. And then that's going to add it to the section of my plan. I can edit that. Oops, I'm on test here. So when you edit the information, let's go to one of these, pretend that's what it is. Then you're going to associate it with a goal, and then start date, due date, weekly hours, any special instructions that you have for that person, and then whatever their status is, either planned, started, or completed. For this program, you're going to say, no, it's not WIOA funded, and then you can identify any barriers that would address for that individual. So that's what we mean by out-of-school youth who have started or completed one of the following of these services. Okay, we'll go too much further. Let me clear the answers, and I have to ask, does it make sense? Or do you have more questions on that particular item? We have 13 people in, so now we have to have about 7 people answer before I'm going to move on.
Cynthia's asking, a youth that has a high school diploma, how are they considered?
Well, you can see there, it says, and I've got to move that slightly, customers without a high school diploma or GED that showed improved educational outcomes. So it's only counting those, again, customers that do not have a high school diploma or GED. So if all of your clients have a high school diploma or GED, then that performance measure is going to be not applicable to you because it's only counting those that do not have a high school diploma or GED.
We have 4 people. We have 9 people that say, no, it doesn't make sense, or I just need you to respond. Okay. So is the question is it about who's considered out of school youth? Or is the question, at least on this particular one, how to identify services?
Let me attempt to clarify on the out-of-school youth, too. That, again, we consider out-of-school youth, those that are not actively engaged in pursuing an education, or they are youth that have completed a high school diploma and are not actively engaged in completing an education. So there's kind of a difference there. And that's one of our eligibility criteria, as you'll recall as well, that if you have students who they're not yet completed their high school equivalency or diploma and they want to participate in the CYEP program, they either need to be enrolled in school or they need to be willing to re-engage in education, or somehow. It's not acceptable to have a youth who has dropped out of school prematurely, doesn't have a high school equivalency, has no interest in getting a high school equivalency, but wants to participate in the community employment program. That in order to participate in the program, they've got to make some sort of effort to return to school. So that's one section of out-of-school youth, would be those who don't have a high school diploma want to participate in the program. But the idea is that those out-of-school youth will become in-school youth once they re-engage in education. The other group of out-of-school youth would be people who have completed at least a high school diploma, and they may or may not have completed some college too, but they're not currently enrolled in either high school secondary education or post-secondary education. Okay, so this could be people maybe who are high school graduates and have finished up, but they're now out of school. So it just depends. The standard that we're looking at says that that 100% of out-of-school youth will re-engage in education, and it considers only those out-of-school youth without a high school diploma or a GED, and compares those who have re-engaged by the time of case closure. Okay? And it does not require attainment of a diploma or GED. Okay? And the acceptable performance on that is 60%. So a youth that re-engages in education and makes progress, and we've got some options there for the progress that they've made, those options, any of those things might be considered improvement in terms of their re-engagement in education. Okay, so if they go back to school and they're actively working towards a high school diploma or GED or other educational credential, then that would be considered re-engaged in education.
Okay, I see that one person is typing. Oh, and then we have some background noise going on. I'm going to mute you, but if you need to be unmuted, then please just put that in the chat and we can unmute you whenever you're ready. Okay. So we only have 5 people that responded to the question.
Come on, guys, you got to give a yes or no here so that this can move on. We got 13 people on the call. We have a poll question, so it either does make sense to you or does not, and it's okay either way, but you got to give some sort of choice here.
One more person needs to respond. All righty. We can keep going on, but we can come back and answer, add more to your response, your question.
So, Natasha, here's a report question there. It says, is there a way that the report can show only the number of youth without a high school diploma in the calculated area? I believe if you roll over, doesn't it show that?
It should only show this right here, this number out-of-school youth who did not start or complete one of the following services. This should be the total number of the out-of-school youth that meet that particular criteria. So we have over 1,000, but this is 512. Actually, these goals need to change. I just noticed that.
Am I reading that right, though, that we've got out-of-school youth that started or completed one of the services, and then we've got out-of-school youth that did not start or complete one of the services? It would be the total of those two numbers, right? Or no?
Well, it would be. I mean, right now it looks like, I just noticed that our goals needed to be updated, but because this right here should be the total number of out-of-school youth that we have at the moment that meet that particular criteria.
Right. Since we don't have any out-of-school youth that have met that criteria yet.
Right. But I need to make a note for, I just noticed.
Edwin is saying, as far as reporting, there are samples in our group that have applications submitted but were not entered by my staff. Will this reflect in our reports, and if so, can we delete these participants?
These are only enrolled customers. Okay. So when it should only be your people that are enrolled. It would not include these other people. And the reason why, Aaron, help me, the reason why we picked this section and why I took the time to show you this section as the criteria of what we're considering out-of-school youth is because you may have people that change over time in this area. But your initial program eligibility is what we were going to base that on because that's not changing.
Right. And Natasha, could you go back in a second here? You're probably on your way to the performance report really quickly. On the note that you were making here, just a second. So I'm with you. So again, the idea is that the youth who are not in school and who have not completed high school, those youth should, we should be working with those youth to actively re-engage in education. And ideally, they should commit to engaging in education at the time of enrollment in order to be considered eligible. So, for example, if we got somebody who is a high school dropout, they're not currently taking any GED classes, and we're going to go to enroll them in the program, that they should commit to us at that time that they are willing to re-engage in education. And then once they do, then as long as we marked everything correctly, then that should show up as a participant who is re-enrolled in education and will count towards meeting that performance measure.
Okay, so
I think, Natasha, I think Steve is responding to Edwin there. as far as so would we need to change the enrollment status? So if it's not so much, I guess, the enrollment status, it's just updating the youth's progress, right? That as the youth would maybe transition from out of school to in school, we would mark that change, right?
Right. Okay, so yeah, so here's the question. As far as reporting, there are samples in our group that applications were not entered by myself. Okay, so you're just asking if you have, you guys were just testing things out to get used to the system, and so they're not really real people. And so yeah, you should let us know who those people are so we can remove them from your area.
Yeah, and
Where do you
I
want them
mentioned
to
that.
send that list?
Info at.
Okay, I'll type that in there.
Or to me, either one, but typically we have this info at. Okay. All right, let's see where we are. Okay. So now we are down to youth with improved educational outcomes. Now this area, and I can put a note on here, I'll have Cody put a note on here as well, that this, as we talked about this quite a bit, we didn't think there was like a really good way to just have the system like figure this out for automatically, not in a very clean way. And so one of the areas that we updated was this is on the progress page in the performance measure deliverables section. You can see it has the following items impact the performance report, tells you which tabs each of them impact. And this one is improved educational outcomes. So you can select these, whatever applies. Okay? And that area is what is going to impact this. If they attained high school diploma, promoted to grade level, re-enrolled, enrolled in GED, enrolled in higher ed or technical school. That's where you're going to identify those. That's how you're going to get these customers up in this area. Double check some of these people. But okay. Oh, the other thing I wanted to point out to you too is because when I first looked at the report, I was like, oh my gosh, something that's really wrong. What's going on? And then I realized that we have program year. I forgot. We moved over to the new program year. So if you want to see the older information, you have the program year, and then Aaron will just want to talk about this overall with the goals and the cumulatives and that sort of thing moving forward from program year to program year. And then we have worksite placement. Is the
Natasha,
next
before
area.
you go on, Jay Shannon is asking, would a client that needs to take classes for dyslexia be able to count as reconnecting with education or just barrier support?
So I think the idea with reconnecting with education is that the education is moving toward completing the high school equivalency. And again, it doesn't have to have been that the youth actually completes the high school equivalency or high school diploma during the year, but it's that the youth is moving toward that anyway. So this is going to be a judgment call, I guess, based on your part, that if the classes for dyslexia, if the purpose of the classes for dyslexia is the eventual completion of a high school diploma or a GED or other high school equivalency, then I would say we would call that re-engaging in education, because that's the education that we're re-engaging toward, even if it is, you know, bits and pieces. So, and I'm looking, Jay says this is for out-of-school youth. They have a high school diploma, okay? So the re-engagement question is only for youth who do not have a high school diploma. So if they already have a high school diploma, they're not going to be counted in that pool as re-engaging in education, okay? Only youth who do not have a high school diploma. But I would say as far as those classes for dyslexia, again, if that's all the youth is doing, it could still be considered, you know, re-engaging in education as long as the end goal is the pursuit or completion of that high school diploma or equivalent.
Okay. Okay. So now we switched over to Worksite Placement. And we have job placements that were converted to unsubsidized employment. So for the items for this particular measure, it's subsidized converted to unsubsidized. So it's going to look at in whether you're in the ISTEP or wherever you choose to update the information, preferably in the ISTEP. Go to one of these. It's going to look at, remember this is the subsidized, unsubsidized. So if you start out with having a customer that had a subsidized wage, and after 30, 60, or 90 days, that has gone from 4 to 0, then that's converting, obviously, from subsidized to unsubsidized. We have, that's what that particular measure is looking at. I do want to point out that just to, because we did have some more people have some questions about this after the last webinar, is that a person can only be in subsidized wage employment for 90 days. And it's from the first day that they start through the end. So if they, it doesn't matter if they work full-time, it doesn't matter if they work part-time, it's still the days start ticking based on that start date. If you have a person that, I don't know, maybe they had a baby or have a medical emergency, something like that, you can put them on hold, which stops the clock ticking for that particular person, and then they can restart, and it wouldn't be counted against them. Okay. So when I go back to this area, you can see we have, for this measure, subsidized converted to unsubsidized. We also have a listing of subsidized that's not converted to unsubsidized. It's not to say that this is a bad thing yet, but they just need to make sure that they are converted to subsidized before the 90 days. And then we have the unsubsidized only, which that's a good thing. And then we have the enrolled and not placed. So then you can easily see where your customers fall in these categories. Select the link, and you'll get a list of customers, and you can update the information as it needs to be updated. So then for this area, it's the verified employment. And so you can do this through the ISTEP as well. And so when you go into the person, I selected the service. I have other information. In this case, I so that they're no longer unsubsidized, or no longer subsidized, and so that it tells me when approximately these days are that I need to do the follow-up. So I can see that I needed to do one on 6/13/2008 for this particular person. It says I have reviewed the customer's information and made updates to ensure the information is current and accurate, and I agree. So I did that update. So once I do those types of updates, you saw that we have 30, 60, 90, what is it, 180 and 270, I think? Yeah. Then you'll start seeing that once you get to the 90, 80, 270, then you'll be able to mark them in the verified employment. Once you have that checkbox, that's what it's going to look for. So those are for the next 3, 6, 9 months. And then we have the case closure section. Let's see here. On the progress page. And so this is what it's looking for. Like when the case is closed, then it'll be looking for if they have verified unsubsidized employment at the time of case closure. And so case closure is this section right here. Okay. Any questions, or do we need to add some more? Do we need to explain something a little bit more? So for nobody's typing. Okay. I don't know, Erin, did you have anything to add to that, or are we?
No, I mentioned that I would follow up with grantees about the reporting requirements and how we're going to use this report. And I know I mentioned at our last webinar, which has been a couple weeks ago, that ideally these things are set for FY19, so please plan to use them. But again, recognizing that not everything was in place throughout FY18, we're going to give grantees an opportunity to kind of self-report some of their numbers. If those numbers, we're still going to ask you to provide the information from the workNet. However, if the numbers from the workNet don't match, we're going to give you an opportunity to explain why they don't match and to be able to verify that. But the report template will be to you, I believe, this Friday. So I'm planning to send it this Friday. You should have it. Again, the vast majority of the information will be based off of what is in the workNet, with an opportunity for you, if you believe that the information in the workNet is not accurate, to clarify it in the report. But it will be to you this Friday. That is pretty much it as far as we're looking to wrap things up for FY18. The periodic financial reports, your EDF forms that you turn in, will be due, the final EDF form for the year will be due pretty much the end of this week. It's really July 15th, but those reports will be due. If you need to make changes to reports after you've submitted them, you can still do that in the future, but after July 15th, I cannot guarantee payment of any changes. So for example, if you don't report all of your expenditures and then you find out later that there were expenditures that you missed and you want to go back and correct that, you can, and I will still process it for payment and hope to get you paid. I just cannot guarantee payment of expenditures turned in after the 15th. So I will get those sent in and processed up to that point and beyond, but that's kind of our deadline for reporting expenditures for FY18, okay?
It looks like there's more people typing, so they might have some.
Sure, I will hang on in case you got other questions. So, and I know we've had this question asked multiple times where Jay says, can you give me a quick clarification on how youth that cross over from FY18 to FY19 will be treated? So how youth will be treated in terms of crossing over, that you project that you're going to serve so many youth when you submit your program plans for the year. That's an essential part of your program plans, that you say, we plan to serve so many youth, we plan to help so many youth get employment or get jobs out of those youth that we plan to serve. So if you planned to serve youth in FY18 and you told us you were going to serve so many youth, enroll so many youth in your program, then we expect that you're going to enroll so many youth in your program, and we're going to compare those numbers. However, when we talk about youth that, you say we're going to employ so many youth or help so many youth get jobs, there might be youth that you enrolled in FY18, but the youth don't actually get employment or meet some of these other goals until FY19, and that is okay. It's just that you might count them. It's going to depend on the individual performance measures. So you might count them as an enrollment in FY18 because they actually were enrolled in FY18. However, when we ask how many youth did you actually help to find jobs or to place in jobs, if they don't get a job until FY19, then they're not going to count on your FY18 reports. They would count in FY19 in terms of those goals, okay? So it's going to depend on the individual performance measure. You'll continue to serve them, but how they count will be dependent on, the individual performance measure. So a couple other questions. When is the report going to be due? It'll be due the end of July. But again, it is not, this will not be a really difficult report to complete, especially with most of the information available through the WorkNet. But I will have it to you. It'll be due the end of July. And then Cynthia asks, what will be the turnaround time for getting reimbursed for the last CYEP 2018 June expenditures? Probably the same turnaround as it's been every other month. So as soon as you submit it, we try to get those sent to our payments unit that same day usually. Sometimes we have delays where we've either missed something or we're still working to correct something, but usually we try to get those sent the same day to our payments unit, and you've experienced that probably, that the payments unit then can take a couple days to process it. They send it to the comptroller, who also takes a couple days to process it. So it can take a week or two to get that turned around to the providers. But we will process your June EDF the same way we process any other EDF. What they will do, May and June, they don't issue prospective payments for FY18. It's just reimbursement. So with June, what they will do is look at your total year-to-date expenditures that you've reported in June, which should be your total expenditures for the whole year. And they'll look at your total payments that you've received, and anything that you've expended and not been reimbursed for, you will get reimbursed for that amount. It'll be the difference between your year-to-date spending and your year-to-date payments. So that should zero you out for the year, basically. You will have been paid for everything you've expended. Now, if you got a prospective payment, back in April, and for some reason or another, things have really ramped down in May or June, and hopefully that hasn't happened, but you got a prospective payment and then you weren't able to spend all of that prospective payment, so you've actually got funds on hand at the end of the year. We try to avoid that scenario, but it's certainly a possibility anytime we're issuing prospective payments. So if you end up with funds on hand at the end of the year, you'll just be required to hang on to those and send those back to DHS eventually through the closeout process. But any funds not expended in FY18 don't carry over to FY19. It's a new grant year. It's a new grant award. And so if you've got leftover funds from FY18, those will not carry over to FY19, okay, whether they're funds that you were paid in a prospective payment or whether unspent funds that were awarded, that will not carry over, okay? And I don't, looks like maybe Cynthia has one other question, but the closeout process, I know many of you were FY17 grantees. I know a handful of our FY17 grantees have had some difficulty wrapping up some of the requirements from FY17, and there have been some compliance issues with our Office of Contract Administration, OCA, and finishing the closeout for the FY17 grants. And so please make sure that you're doing everything you can to wrap up FY18 in a timely fashion. There are a number of things that aren't due right away. Let's wrap up FY18, that some requirements still have several months out to be able to wrap up FY18, but that'll be it. Cynthia says, I had a question regarding electronic signatures on timesheets. Can worksite employers submit an electronic signature on their timesheet? As long as it's something that you can verify and that you are comfortable with in terms of verifying the authorization, we're okay with that. So Mr. Galletti says, will we have time to go over the worksite placement and the payroll section where they ask for payroll status? I'll tell you what, Edwin, if you can hang on, and Natasha, I don't know if you can hang on too. We might let everybody go and see if there are any more other general questions, but if there are no other general questions, I know I spoke to Mr. Galletti on the phone yesterday, and he had some specific questions. So if we can hang on, might be able to walk you through some of those things.
Yep.
Okay. So if there are no other specific questions, or I mean general questions related to what we've talked about today or other things you want to ask about, we'll conclude the webinar. I think we're going to stay and we'll unmute Mr. Galletti and allow him to kind of ask some questions, and Natasha can walk through some of those things. If anybody wants to stay to see those things, you're certainly welcome to, but because you might have the same question. But can we unmute Edwin?
I am looking to see a couple people that are muted, but everybody's unmuted.
Yes. If you're, by the way, if you're participating via the internet, I think you still have a computer audio option that you can use. However, if you want to use the call-in, that's what I do on a regular basis, and Dee just posted the call-in number there. So you can call in, Mr. Galletti, and then we'll be able to have a conversation with you.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Hi.
You might want to turn your computer speakers off.
I got to turn the speaker off. That's on my line. All right. Am I there?
Mm-hmm.
We got you.
Okay. Thank you. So I was talking to Aaron yesterday, and I was walking through. So we got some people who started subsidized placement on 7-2. And when going through the employer section to add them, I've been doing it through a dummy account that was already in there. But I ran into something, and I asked about, like, payroll status, and then, let's see, hold on. And it's asking, like, approved payroll. Let me find something. So payroll status, employers with placement without approved payroll entry, employers with placements with at least one approved payroll entry, and employers with no placement. Like, what is the basis around that? I don't know what that means.
So,
Natasha, do you want to stop recording?
We'll continue to record for just a moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the whole point with this is, okay, so specifically, do you want me to start at the top and go down, or is it just a specific, this middle area, or which part specifically?
So I added the employer. I was able to do that. I got that far. So now if I go into a participant, I can add employer. But when it comes to payroll status, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
And then when you go into the payroll to upload history and whatnot, so it's on worksite placement. So basically from the top would be great.
Yeah, I believe it's in the worksite placement module. He's just had some difficulty with that. And I know we've covered this on some previous training webinars, but I just thought if
Yeah, that's great.
address it again, that'd be great.
Mhm. So you're right. So what we would do is you would go in and first of all enter your employers. Okay. So at that point in time, you're not entering whether it's subsidized or unsubsidized. You're just entering your employers. You're entering your work site information about like their wages and stuff like that for that particular placement. Now, this just kind of gives you an overview so you can see which employers or how many of those employers have subsidized placements, which have subsidized and unsubsidized, because remember the goal is to really transition all those to either transition all of them to unsubsidized or just have them be unsubsidized to begin with. And so that's the goal, because you can only have people in subsidized wages for 90 days. Now,
Correct.
Now, just to say, maybe, you really wouldn't expect an employer to be here in this line item for longer than 90 days, because after 90 days, they really should transition down to this line item.
Okay.
So even if they have some people that started, 2 weeks or whatever, so many weeks, they can have both in this area.
So for us, we have so for us, we run a few other CJ programs for like adults and whatnot. And there's cases where we do subsidize with an employer for 8 weeks in a particular program, but we place them somewhere else. We would just enter their employment history as being placed in a different employer, and that subsidized placement, if they didn't transition, substituted more of getting on-the-job experience to help them have the skills to apply for other positions. So that would show up in employers with subsidized only, unsubsidized. I'm sorry.
In that situation, they would just show up in subsidized placement.
Okay. Okay.
So that's just to kind of give us an overview of the the employers. And then we have customers that with placements, but they haven't started, so that would be once we are I'm in test. No wonder those numbers look weird to me. But surely not. But let me go ahead and let me get my list of people here real quick. I'm on test. So I'm in the ISTEP. And you can say, let me go back to my dashboard. Sorry about that. Okay, so you have customers with placements that an employment has not started. So in that case, that would just mean that they, have a planned not started status. Okay.
So that's what we'll do, a short-term goal or whatnot with them, or long-term, short-term, really, right? That would,
like if you're working, if you're working with them, if you have a customer that's placed with somebody and you have them marked as started, they're going to be down here somewhere.
I got you. Okay.
If they don't have any placements at all, they're going to be here. And one of the reasons we like to give you the number for who doesn't have anything at all is because that's a lot of times where you need to focus on to get some work, things updated. Right. So it's nice to know who did it, but it's also nice to know who doesn't have it. So
we've realized this is a lot of, it gives you a lot of checkpoints, which is very helpful when you're dealing with, say, 40 individuals at one time, and it allows you to get a visual of who you need to call in and maybe work through some steps. This is very helpful. It's like a reminder buffer, so we love it.
Okay.
So now, I know you're walking through it. I guess when we do payroll, when we submit, say, so now we got everything going, they're in and whatnot, but now we're submitting, it's asked us to upload payroll information.
Right.
So do we just scan and upload a timesheet?
Yeah, I'll show you in just a second. So you only have to do payroll uploads for subsidized placement.
Right.
You don't have to do it for unsubsidized because you're not paying for it. The employer's paying for it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So what you would do there is you go into Worksite Placement and I can't remember who my person is with that I was using, but you would go into this payroll area. You can add a payroll. Okay. So I'm going to say, who knows what I'll get because I'm a test, but we're going to give it a whirl here. And then I'm going to, I wish I could remember who my person was with. Yeah, we're going to select, I think this one. Let me go here. Like I said, this is in test. Let me see. I think I'm going to try that one. There. Okay, awesome. Do they have anybody? Yeah, they have people. Okay. So, awesome. Okay. So this would default to your area. You would put in the pay period date. And then you're going to download this template. Okay. So you download the template. It's going to have your organization, wherever they were associated with. You don't have to worry about the WorkNet ID, but you'll have the first name of the person that was added, last name, last four, the SSN if it's there, the pay period. You can enter in the hours that they worked. It's going to automatically take from the system what the subsidized wage is. And then you can add that so you can see what their subsidized versus unsubsidized and the hourly wage.
Yes.
So you'll have all this information. You save it. We'll just do.
So I wouldn't be doing, I'm following up. I would be doing my entire payroll for that period for all my participants. So if I have 25 individuals that are receiving some form of subsidy, they need to be on this one template when I upload it.
Yeah.
And then job ID, where would I get that? That something
the
that
job, no, the job ID, don't change that because that's coming from the system.
Based on participant?
I can't remember if it's the worksite ID.
Okay. I got you.
I'm pretty sure it's the worksite ID, yeah. Or the job. Actually, there's the worksite and then the job. You know, that's the job that's associated with that worksite.
Job code or whatnot. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I go into that section, I'm not putting payroll for one individual. I just want to be sure that I'm uploading it for the entire code for that pay period.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to only upload it for part of the people, like you want to cut out half of this or whatever, you could just upload it for as many people as you want to. I would just you know, if you're not going to use something, just delete that row.
Yeah, I think I would do it for each, just the whole cohort that's in on that time. I think it just seems okay. And then from there, that'd be something you guys could download and review, right, to match to what we submit through our payroll department.
Yep. Then it'll say upload the payroll template. So you save it to your desktop or wherever, and then you upload the payroll template. And if you wanted to upload any other files with it, you can. It'll only let you put, Excel files and PDFs. But if you wanted to provide supplemental information, then you could. You're not required to. And then
Yeah, we get payroll expenditures with the payroll that we get every net 15th, so every 16th and 30th. I can't upload it, so it's not one or the other. We do need a payroll file, period.
yeah.
Okay. Now, and this you only want us to reflect that pay period. So we would do multiples throughout the year, not adding on to one, right? We will continue to. So for 7/15 through 7/30, it'll be a new one. 8/1 to 8/15, it'll be a different one, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then, and then you can upload them, and then that gives DHS the ability to review it and say, yep, it looks good, everything's approved. And so when you go back to this person, let's see, I don't know if I have anything for my test person. Where are you? But what you'll notice is that we have these different areas where you can add in information. We also have like these other areas that are more like summary. So you could see their summary of their case notes, summary of assessments, optional resume. Okay. So the worksite placement will give you a summary of the different, obviously this is test. I had a whole bunch of junk on here, but, of the different placements. And then you can also see a summary at the individual level of their payroll uploads. Okay.
And then when we do total wage, we're going to only be speaking on, so we do $7.75 an hour. They do 5 hours. We're not giving you net. We're giving you gross, right? For each individual, right?
Yeah. That's correct, okay. Aaron? Gross?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm on board now.
The one thing I thought of, Aaron, is in this breakout right here, we just show the hourly wage. We don't show the breakout between subsidized and unsubsidized. If they have like a combination of subsidized and unsubsidized, do you only want them to upload the information for the unsubsidized portion of it?
Well, I have to think about that for a second. I mean, we want to upload all of the relevant information. So, for example, if they've got unsubsidized, we want to know how much they're earning unsubsidized. If they've got subsidized, we want to make sure we know how much they're earning subsidized. So, basically, it's a sliding scale that can go anywhere from 100% subsidized to 100% unsubsidized, or anywhere in between. So we've got their hourly wage. We want to know what portion, if any, of it is subsidized.
Right. So I'm just wondering if I need to have Cody update this payroll display to show, the breakdown of however you want it, like percent subsidized, or if you want a dollar amount subsidized.
Probably if we could see a breakdown of dollar amount subsidized, I think that would be the most straightforward way to do it.
I agree.
So, yeah, I think we're good from here. So I do have one more question. We love this system. How would we get access to bring this for another program? To have access to the way you guys have it broken out. I know, Mr. Hacker, this is you all gorilla, but we think that this will benefit and serve a lot of purposes for us, for all our programming. And I was wondering, how would we go about just, how would we contact, and how would we go about possibly getting Illinois WorkNet to work with us on a different level with other programs?
So let me clarify that just a little bit. So the Illinois WorkNet, of course, it has their global site. So the Illinois WorkNet was there before the Youth Employment Program, and I presumably believe it'll be there after the Youth Employment Program, should it ever go away. So it's an interesting partnership because the WorkNet operates independently from the Youth Employment Program.
Okay.
And I believe the global site is funded by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And so we have just kind of partnered with the WorkNet, since many of the things that we wanted to do were already things that were incorporated into kind of the global WorkNet. We just wanted some customized tools for this particular program to meet our needs. So we have entered into a contract with the WorkNet to be able to provide those custom services. So I assume that if you were to want to do the same thing, or for your programs as a whole, you could recommend that they partner with the WorkNet to do that. But in general, that's a special arrangement between DHS and the WorkNet, and I think Natasha and her colleagues work to make those things happen. So they have done a lot of work for us here at DHS. So.
Right, and a lot of the stuff that we're building, like for example, the ISTEP, that'll be pushed out to what we call our customer support center, so that you could use personal groups to or whatever groups that you have access to customers. So you could use those types of tools with them. We haven't put, we'll need to put, I guess, Worksite Placement out there for everyone at the same time, but we didn't really push that out there too much because I kind of wasn't really sure how people were going to use it yet, at the not a special program level. But
we use it we use it on the WorkNet with all our job readiness training, because of the modules you offer have been beneficial to us. So we do it from the perspectives of doing it through groups, as far as but like the thing that's amazing about it is, like, we're able to case note in here. People could read the progress, set the goals. So yeah, I don't know. Anybody can email me some information on how I can get started, but we would like to continue some dialogue on that as well.
Yeah, just send your request to info@lmiworknet.com, and it'll get to me and my boss Jeannie. But yeah, we can do that. There'll be global tools that you can use. Like, so whenever we do special projects, we always want to make them available to all of our partners. But if you wanted something, special, like the different reports, or something that would really be, project specific, then, we would need to have some other kind of agreement.
I'll get that started. I'll send you an email first because we went in here and there's individuals that we've never heard of that are linked to us, and we don't want it to look like if we're not doing something with someone. So we want to just have them removed and only have the people that we're working with. Also, I guess this is for Aaron. We've kept files on these individuals for the past 2 years that we've done the program. With all this information in the system, do you still want us to keep a hard file?
So that's a great question. The goal was to try to be able to keep as much data available online as possible. However, there are still some things that we need to keep in hard files. So what the WorkNet does for us is it provides some redundancy, so that we've kind of got a backup of some of this information, which makes it easy for us to access either through DHS here or for you and your staff to access and organize. But it's not an absolute substitute for keeping hard files. So as much as I hate duplication of effort, I think keeping hard files is still a good idea, and we've still required that in your contract.
And we will, because we can export case notes, so it's not like we're doing double work. We can export it and just file away, so this is great. Well, I appreciate all your help. I think we've learned a lot on this webinar, and we'll continue to go back and look at the others that you have done to help us. And I know that I could reach out to you if I have any issues. I appreciate the help.
And to anybody else that's still on the call, if you have specific questions, kind of like Edwin's had today, that you would like Natasha to go over something in particular, you can either send that to us in advance, or you can, and it may end up working out to be able to take the time, as they've got time that allows to be able to take the time afterwards to kind of give some one-on-one training, which I know it's one-on-one plus the 8 or 9 other participants still on the call. Right. But if you need some individualized support like that, we can try to make arrangements to be able to provide that.
I will think about that going forward. I think that
And then you got
we've got a good handle on it, and I'm sure we're going to have more questions later, though, as we go through this more and more and trying to figure out step by step of what we're doing. So we're really working through one person right now because we want to master the one, and then we'll be able to start. So early on, you may see data coming in, like, over the next week or two that have happened. Like, so, for example, we will case note. Like, right now I'm working with an individual. She's been working with us since, like, 6/25 through intake and all that stuff. But so the information will be going in later than when it actually started, but only because we want to be sure that we're putting in information correctly, because I know it has, like, timestamps.
Literally dropping him off, grabbing what I need for the parking officer.
So, all right, I'm good. If you guys don't have any questions for me,